We are 50 days away from kickoff, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined by my good friend Michael Straw, and today we're going to break down the upcoming season and get you all ready for Penn State and UCF in Dublin, Ireland. Michael, welcome on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a Penn State student. I'm a sophomore. I have been a huge Penn State fan my entire life. I've been watching Penn State football since I've been 5 years old. I dedicated my life to this university, and I want to see our football program aspire to the world.
So with Maryland and Rutgers, today is July 1st. Maryland and Rutgers are now officially part of the Big Ten. We're just going to start off by welcoming them. It's pretty much the Big 14 now. Pretty much the Big 14. What are your thoughts on Maryland and Rutgers, just before we get started?
Well, first, I think we should have taken the Big 12 name, because the Big 12 doesn't have 12 teams anymore. And second, I think Maryland and Rutgers are a good addition in other sports. However, with football, I think they're at a disadvantage. But, as usual, in all football games, any team in the Big Ten can surprise. So I think we will see some surprises from Maryland and Rutgers this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I look for Rutgers. There's a lot of good players in New Jersey. Penn State has had a lot of success recruiting in New Jersey, especially this season. So I look for Rutgers to possibly have a little bit of an edge over Maryland this season. I'm not saying every season, but I think to start the Big Ten, I think Rutgers is going to be on top in the standings of Maryland. I don't think they're going to be too high, but I'm not going to count Maryland out of it because you never like to underestimate an opponent. All right, now we're going to look back to the 2013 season and kind of go over the strengths and weaknesses of last season. I think we did overall a pretty good job. I think I'm fairly pleased with how the season went. We had some pretty big wins, like against Michigan, Wisconsin, and also some pretty bad losses. Indiana. I don't think we should have lost to Nebraska. Mistakes really cost us last season. How do you feel about last season?
How do I feel about last season? Well, when I was at the games, just as you were, I was shocked, for instance, for UCF. I feel that we were coming in with a head of steam, and I thought we were going to take them, and we didn't. Right. Indiana was a big shock. I anticipated that Indiana over the years had been getting better and possibly could be an opponent for us, but on the road, yes, I didn't think that it would be a 20-point womp.
No.
And then the biggest shock was Nebraska in the end. The overtime loss, the few mistakes that cost us that game are the same mistakes that cost us the other games, just in larger quantities. So in the end, I feel that mistakes gave up these big wins that we should have had.
Right, absolutely. So what are some strengths that you really want to think the team should improve on for this season?
Some strengths that we need to improve on are running backs, and I think they've been doing great over the past few seasons. They've continued to improve, and and I think they're going to continue to earn more yards over this year, particularly against Ohio State, for instance. Right. With Ohio State losing some of their players and defensive linemen, I think that our running backs are going to be able to penetrate more, and with other teams as well. Another big improvement that we're going to see more improving is passing, I feel.
Right.
However, we'll get to weaknesses eventually, but I feel that our passing may be limited not by Hackenberg, but this time by the youngness and freshness of our receivers.
Yeah. So I guess we could go to weaknesses now. So you think the receivers, we did lose Robinson to the NFL. Wish him the best of luck. Mosby Felder, we lost him. Richie Anderson recently left the team. I think there was a lot of talent there, so that was pretty disappointing. But you got Eugene Lewis, and a couple really good wide receiver recruits. But what are some other weaknesses that we need to improve for this season?
Well, special teams is somewhat of a weakness. However, they've been improving greatly over the past 2 seasons. I feel they will improve some more, and it was a weakness over the past 2 seasons, but we're going to continue to improve. Whether it's just running back or whether it's just kicking in general, whether punting or kicking field goals or extra points, all those are going to be improved over the next season, I think.
I think we need to look at Hackenberg, who's a year older. All of our players are a year older. But I think with the talent that Christian Hackenberg brings to the offense, it's going to be really exciting to see how he's grown over the summer and at camps. We look back right now at the stats from last year. We really did dominate teams on both sides of the ball. There were some areas of, needs that we need to improve. For instance, we did not do too well on third downs. We were under 40% on third downs, which you can't really have that if you want to be a real threat of an offense. Now we're going to move on to a new topic with Bill O'Brien departing New Year's Eve. There's a lot of talk about him going around on TV. What was your first thought when you heard Bill O'Brien's name on TV that night?
Well, being an avid Penn State fan and just loving Penn State football, I was a little bit shocked at first to see his name being bounced around for the Texans head coach position. Right. And I was thinking, no, wait. I'm thinking he's only been here for 2 years. I was thinking he only has a small record so far. I'm thinking maybe in another 2 years or so.
Right.
But when he's finally had 4 years and a full class of recruits go through. But I didn't think that the NFL wanted to take him just yet, but apparently they did.
Yeah, I think he's a great coach, and it was his dream always to coach in the NFL, and I think we all really knew that when he was coming in because he worked for Bill Belichick for some good many years at New England. Was a great coach there, and people were a little angry, I think, at him, and I don't really understand because the man's chasing his goals, and frankly, I want a coach to be here because he wants to be here. And I wish him nothing but the best. I think he's going to be a great coach in the NFL. I'm excited to watch the Houston Texans to see. He did get Jadeveon Clowney, first-round pick in the NFL draft, so that shouldn't be too bad. He should be pretty happy about that.
Oh, yes, he should be very happy indeed, and I wish him the best of luck. My team, the Carolina Panthers that I root for, will certainly have fun with him.
Oh, yes, indeed. Well, when I was at a New Year's Eve party, probably like everybody else, and the name came up, Bill O'Brien leaving Penn State for Houston, and I was, like you said, pretty shocked at the time. But when I really went back to look at it, I kind of understood a little bit more that it was his dream. I was happy for him, but I was really concerned more for Penn State, saying, okay, now what? It's right in the middle of recruiting. The staff's going to go. Who's going to be our coach? Who's going to lead us through this? And pretty much where are we going to go from here? And there was a lot of candidates that came up. Al Golden was one of them that I was really interested in. Mike Munchak was another one that was brought up. There was a good many. And then James Franklin came up. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know a whole lot about James Franklin before because I didn't really follow Vanderbilt a whole lot. And I didn't really think he would be very interested in it. When looking into the program, it seemed like he was happy there. He had a lot of success there. And he was really loved there by the Vanderbilt community and the family. And when he came here, I was pretty surprised. I was happy, of course, but pretty surprised. How'd you feel when James Franklin really made the commitment to Penn State?
I was amazed, and I was so happy because I thought the SEC mentality is coming to the Big Ten, and we're going to shock the world as Penn State is going to somehow make a little bit of a reversal of what it normally does, which is just straight on classical defense offense. I thought, because I used to live in Charlotte, North Carolina for many years, and I was down near the heart of the SEC, and I watched many SEC games, and I watched how they played compared to Penn State, and I thought that's something that Penn State may want to use or utilize in defense. And with this SEC mentality that Franklin was going to bring, I felt that along with the defensive progressions that we've already had, including where you said the red zone efficiency. I think we're going to bring down the
Right.
opponent's red zone efficiency because of this SEC mentality alone that's being driven into our defense and our offense.
Yeah, if it was truly 100% red zone efficiency, I'd be pretty scared. But I do apologize for that. Looking at it's kind of far away from me here. But when James Franklin made his speech to Penn State on TV, I watched it, and I was just so excited. I mean, just to see the enthusiasm that he had. I mean, before, I was very excited when Bill O'Brien came because, I mean, it's the New England Patriots. They were playing in the Super Bowl that year. I'm like, oh, this is great for us. And that excitement does not compare to what it was when James Franklin committed because, I mean, he grew up in Pennsylvania. He grew up a Penn State fan, just like, everyone in Pennsylvania is either a Pitt fan or a Penn State fan. Hopefully more of you are Penn State fans. But growing up in Philly, he was he said he did watch Penn State games. He was never up for a game, but he played at East Stroudsburg, and I think he knows what it means to be a Pennsylvania guy and a Penn State man. And this goes on to the next topic, and that's recruiting. If you would have told me that we would be the number 2 team in the country in recruiting after Bill O'Brien left, I would not believe you.
I wouldn't either. I was just excited after James Franklin was bringing in all these recruits, bringing up his coaching staff as well, and basically tracking down and finding these great football players and bringing them in. And that's where I think Rutgers in Maryland are going to have trouble because Penn State and James Franklin have already saturated the region for good football recruits. So I was excited. I didn't think we were going to have such a large recruiting scale in terms such a good recruiting scale, mainly because of the sanctions and just how many people were allowed to recruit compared to other teams. But and with the fact that we have a few years left to go in terms of the bowl ban, I was extremely surprised as well that we had so many recruits. It just shows that people are still excited for Penn State football, and they were really excited for James Franklin.
Right, and I think that after the sanctions, this town, I remember when it came out a couple years ago, this town was just demoralized. I know I was. I was honestly scared because, I mean, I didn't think it would happen, the death penalty, which means we can't play football at all. Everyone was talking about it, and I was a little scared about that, but I didn't think it would actually happen. But when the sanctions came out, it just really hurt me as a Penn State fan. I'm sure it did you too. And I think that the way that the team and the community stayed committed to Penn State football is just tremendous because, they could have left. These players could have left. Christian Hackenberg could have gone somewhere else to start and be a star and play for a bowl, but he stayed here at Penn State because he wanted to. Same with these players. Now, there are some players that did leave, and I have respect for them. That is their choice. But having the scholarship reduction, I think that with all these commitments that we're having right now, it's a real big relief. You can have a sigh of relief if you're a Penn State fan, knowing that these sanctions are not going to cripple your program forever. We are right behind Alabama, and who knows, maybe in a couple weeks we could be number 1.
Oh yes, certainly. And all these recruits and all the players that are here know, I think they have in their mentality that you don't have to be a good football team and have to go to a bowl game.
Right.
They know that, and the new recruits that are coming in are knowing that they will probably or quite possibly play in a bowl game in a few years, or in not necessarily the bowl game, but now the new way that the NCAA is playing it with the brackets.
Right.
So they have a feeling that they will make it to a game of some sort, whether it's preseason or it's postseason. So I think that's in their minds as well. And also with James Franklin just coming in, having an 8-4 record in the SEC, that's very good.
I think with a Vanderbilt team that isn't, not the best team in the SEC, they're competing with Alabama. I mean, they're competing with Tennessee, Ole Miss, these big name schools. And I mean, they're not, the recruits in the SEC are going to want to go to Alabama over Vanderbilt. And James Franklin was getting a lot of recruits to Vanderbilt and making real star football players out of them. I was watching some of their film this past few weeks, and I was just really surprised at how much talent that they had at Vanderbilt, because to be honest with you, I never even really considered Vanderbilt to be really a threat of a team. But when I really looked into it, they could possibly be still competing for the top of the SEC. So I think from where James Franklin put Vanderbilt with recruiting and an 8-4 record last season, they're going to be able to compete even though he's gone. So I think that he did a lot of good things for Vanderbilt, and he's going to bring that to Penn State.
Yes, I agree completely. Vanderbilt was 8-4 last year. They won their last 4 games in November. They won their bowl game against a good Houston team.
They won their last 5 games, which I think is very impressive.
Yes, and an impressive win at home against Georgia in the end was, I feel, was able to help them top off their season and prove that they are definitely a team to be reckoned with within the SEC. And I think they will continue to do so when this season starts. I don't know who they're playing in the first game, but I think that they should be very wary of this Vanderbilt team.
Yes, absolutely. And to go back really on recruiting for what he's done for Penn State has gotten a lot of transfers from Vanderbilt that recently committed to Vanderbilt, switched over to Penn State to come with Bill O'Brien and the coaching staff. I know Vanderbilt's not too happy about that, but the Nittany Lions are. We're getting some really good players. A player that I want to talk about a little bit is Saeed Blacknell. He's a wide receiver. People say he might be the next Allen Robinson. That's a lot of hype to fill in. But he was originally going to go to Rutgers. He was committed to Rutgers, and then James Franklin came here. He decommitted from Rutgers and committed to Penn State. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this kid play. Having Robinson gone, Mosby Felder gone, we're going to need a lot of help at the receiving core, and I think that he's going to bring that real spark that we're going to need. Quarterbacks, we have Hackenberg. There's been some talk that's kind of scaring me a little bit of Hackenberg possibly leaving after his junior year to go to the NFL if he has 2 more strong seasons. But I felt a little bit better about it because we got Michael O'Connor, who is another star quarterback who played in the Under Armour All-American game. We got another recruit from dual threat quarterback from New Jersey. So I think we're very, very secure in the quarterback position for the next couple of years, even after Hackenberg's gone. And I think James Franklin really helped bring these recruits here with his excitement and his enthusiasm.
Oh, yes, of course. And I don't think we have to worry too much about Hackenberg, at least this year, or junior year at the moment, because, as you know, the future is very difficult to predict. I agree with you that our quarterbacks, we seem to be stable just in general. We've all at Penn State through the Paterno era, the Bill O'Brien era, and now through James Franklin. I've always seen that we've always had good secondary and third string quarterbacks, and we've been able to keep them there, and we've also been able to utilize them as well whenever we needed to. Mm-hmm. So because a lot of people know that not always the star quarterback is always used, and that was seen particularly, for instance, in the Virginia game in 2012, and it will probably be seen again throughout this season whenever we are either winning against a team by a large margin or by a large margin we may be losing.
Yeah, true. Hopefully not. But so I guess we can kind of transition now into this coming season. James Franklin will be making his Penn State debut in Dublin, Ireland, which I think is exciting. Tell me, what do you feel about Dublin playing in Ireland?
I think it's great. I think it brings a bowl atmosphere that the kids absolutely need. They need them a lot because we won't have a bowl opportunity for at least 2 to 3 years.
Well, now this is we have 2 years after this, but there has been some talk of the NCAA possibly reducing it, and maybe we could play for a bowl next year. But like you said, the future is hard to predict because they have given us our scholarships back. So this year we will not be playing in a bowl. We will not. But hopefully next year the NCAA might change their mind and help us out. But continue.
Oh, certainly. I would like to see a bowl by the time I get out of before I get out of Penn State University. I think that Dublin is going to create a bowl atmosphere, especially with the fact that many UCF fans and Penn State fans are being invited to come. They have certain amounts of ticket allotments to make sure that there's an even match of crowd, even though we probably know that the Penn State crowd is going to probably overtake the UCF crowd.
That's right.
Let's hope. Let's hope. I think they will, and I think it also brings a different atmosphere, not just for Americans coming to Dublin, but also for Europeans that are watching. I think they're going to align with Penn State a little bit more than UCF. Yeah. So in the end, I think it's going to be a very exciting game, and it's going to be a big opportunity for Penn State, especially on national television.
Right, national television, overseas, and I remember standing at the tunnel to wait for the Penn State team to get there when we played UCF last season, and this guy from Ireland came around with a camera and was just interviewing people on why people in Ireland should root for Penn State. And he asked me, and I just flat out said Penn State's better than UCF, and they beat us. But not this year. I really think it's happening. Let's look at UCF a little bit here. They lost Blake Bortles and Storm Johnson. They're two stars in the NFL. Blake Bortles, as we know, went in the first round. They have a real threat. And J.J. Wharton, he's their wide receiver. He's like their Allen Robinson, if you will. He will make the big plays when you need him to. I think it's really going to be a mix-up of Penn State's pass game, UCF's pass game and Penn State's pass defense. We're still unsure of who's going to be starting quarterback for UCF, but there's always talent there. But I do think Penn State can pull this one out this year.
I think we can as well. I think that we need to remember that I don't think that this UCF team is the same team that defeated Baylor in their bowl game.
Right.
They've lost their quarterback, and they've lost a couple of other good players in the NFL. Congrats to them. I hope their journey into the NFL is smooth and works out well for them. However, I feel that UCF, I'm not going to say is at a disadvantage, but I'm going to say is not as experienced as it once was against Penn State, and I'm going to say that Penn State, I feel, has the advantage in this round because playing with just on the hopes of a receiver and a little bit of offense and a little bit of luck is not always going to get you the win.
Right. I'm going to make my pick. Penn State wins this game right now, 31-24. I think it's going to be still an interesting game because, like you said, there's still a lot of talent on that team. But I think Penn State, we were very thankful, we're lucky, and I'm very thankful that last year we didn't graduate a whole lot of players. We still have a good amount of our star players still here, when other teams in the Big Ten and around the country that we're playing lost a lot of their star players. So that's why I'm picking Penn State over UCF.
I'm picking Penn State over UCF 31-20. I'm going to say 31-20. I have a feeling that our defense is going to hold the line a little bit more in this game, and I think that we're going to be holding them to some more field goals, and we're not going to be allowing as much red zone efficiency for our opponents. And UCF, I think we're going to see a stark contrast with this game as compared to the home game that we had last season.
Right. And now we move on to our first home game, which will be Bill O'Brien State College Beaver Stadium debut against Akron. What do you feel about Akron?
I always tell people, and I warn Michigan people as well. I said, worry about Akron, worry about them. They can sometimes be a thorn in your side.
Yes.
Because, and wouldn't you know, Michigan fans, when I was on the blogs, they didn't listen to me, and they got the scare of their life as Akron was knocking on their door, and the
1 yard line.
Yes, on the 1 yard line. When you have to defend on the 1 yard line against Akron, it might be a rough season.
Right.
And Appalachian State was probably ringing in their ears. So I would say to Penn State people, do not be overzealous over Akron. We need to be very, very cautious because Akron can play up this mentality that they're not as good as Penn State and these other Big Ten teams, but they can hang right with you.
Yeah, I've said this a couple times, I never underestimate an opponent. Akron, there's some you might, but I never like to. Akron is a team with
a lot of talent normally. Last year they had a lot of senior players. This year they did graduate. Last year, excuse me, they did graduate a good bit. They're going to have a younger team this year. And I think that I'm hoping we have 107,000 there to see James Franklin's debut against Akron. I do have Penn State having a sizable win, 42-14 over Akron. It's just, for some reason, Akron never has an answer for Penn State. So I'm going to say it right now. It's not my final pick. None of these are my final pick, but this is right now. I'm just going with a big win for Penn State.
I'm going to go with 42-24.
Mm-hmm.
I think Penn State is going to. It's just normal for the first home game to be a little bit closer than usual. I mean, like last season, Eastern Michigan, Christian Hackenberg wasn't all as comfortable in the beginning, and he allowed for a fumble, and that was okay. Eastern Michigan, however, is not the same caliber as Akron, I feel, and Akron is going to be able to penetrate a little bit more. So I'm going to say 42-24.
Okay. And then we get to the real interesting game, Rutgers. First Big Ten game for Rutgers. Well, not Big Ten opponent, but this is their first game in the Big Ten against a Big Ten opponent. It's a night game at Rutgers.
Oh, yes.
This might be an interesting game.
I think it's going to be absolutely interesting. Rutgers played a good, I would say they played an okay and decent game against Notre Dame in their bowl game. Their record over the past few years has not been bad. It's actually been very good.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a very good record. They've been ranked a few times. Don't underestimate Rutgers at home. I mean, when they're at Happy Valley, it might be a different story next year. But considering that they also got some recruits, not as many as Penn State did from New Jersey, but they got some pretty good New Jersey recruits. We need to be worried. We need to be on. We need to be on our feet, and we need to be thinking hard as to how we are going to outmaneuver Rutgers, because Rutgers is a roadblock to reaching certain wins that we need. It's a milestone.
Yeah, it'll be our first real road game of the season, not counting playing in Ireland because that's a neutral site. And it should be a pretty interesting environment. I'm sure there will be a lot of Penn State fans there because it's a really close road game for us. So I'm hoping we get a lot of Nittany Lion fans there. Rutgers, they're not going to like us too much. We're their new rival.
Oh, yes.
We're the new rival. I think it's going to be an interesting game.
There's also another thing to add. The fact how early this game is compared to our other Big Ten opponents and Rutgers' other Big Ten opponents. Our other Big Ten opponents that we will be facing this year are going to get a first glance at what Penn State and Rutgers and how their mentality and how they're going to play in terms of Big Ten play. Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, I think all of them in the end, no matter if Penn State or Rutgers wins, is going to have somewhat of an advantage in terms of information and in terms of statistics, because they're going to be able to see how Penn State and Rutgers play in these early games, whether this year or next year.
And you have to think that Rutgers is going to want to make a pretty strong impression on the Big Ten to say, hey, we can compete, because there are a lot of people out there saying that, Rutgers and Maryland don't belong, in any sport in the Big Ten, which I strongly disagree. I think they're going to want to make a statement and say, we can play with you, and they're gonna put up a fight. I am going to pick Penn State. I do think that just our experience is going to be there, and I think the excitement level is just going to be a little bit too much for Rutgers, because when you're too excited, you can make mistakes.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to pick Penn State 28-24.
I'm going to pick Penn State 28-17. I think Rutgers is going. I actually think that 17 is going to come out early. It's going to be in the first half. Penn State's going to be around there, maybe 14 or 17 tied with them. But then I feel Penn State is going to pull away, and in the end, its strength and its experience is just going to lift it over Rutgers in the end.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then Penn State returns home to a game that is supposedly going to be considered one of the easier games of the season against UMass, a very young and experienced UMass team, but you're not going to underestimate them. Head coach Mark Whipple, who is Austin Whipple's dad, who is a backup quarterback for Penn State, so that'd be kind of cool. It'll be at Beaver Stadium. What do you look at for UMass?
I think UMass. It's going to be a game for Penn State that, like every game, whether it's basketball, football, or even tennis, you can't overestimate your opponent. And Penn State, they might. I'm not going to say we're going to lose the game, but I'm going to say that we might, if we win the first 3 games in a row, Penn State they may not have a lesson yet, and they may start off sluggish because UMass they might feel just to go all in because because teams that are down lower on the ranks they tend to just go all in and try their hardest, and sometimes teams that are overzealous and think they're going to win aren't going to put in as much effort. Right. So I would say look in the first.
Does Ohio ring a bell?
Ohio certainly rings a bell. Virginia rings a bell. Mm-hmm. Indiana last year rings a bell.
Right.
We were going in to UCF. We were going in thinking that we were going to easily win, and here we come with running away with our tails between our legs.
Right.
So I seriously say to all Penn State fans, do not underestimate any opponent, even UMass. I'm going to put out a score though right now. I'm going to say that Penn State it's going to be like Kent State. Because I like to factor in weather sometimes. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say 35-3. I'm going to give UMass a field goal.
I look at UMass. They are not a defensive team. They are going to struggle stopping Christian Hackenberg, Eugene Lewis, Bill Belton, Zach Swinack, the list goes on, the tight ends. They're going to struggle with that. Their offense is more notable than their defense. So I'm going to say Penn State wins 56-10. I think Penn State's just going to run away with this one. I think the momentum's going to be there if they win the first 3 games. It's going to follow through. And I just don't really see UMass putting up too much of a fight, but you never want to count them out of it.
Well, I will say this: if Penn State fans and there's going to be hiccups in every game. If you want hiccups to occur in none of the other games, I suggest having them all in this game because we have a sizable advantage over UMass. I'd much rather want hiccups and problems to be solved in this game where we still have the advantage. Than say during the Michigan game or Ohio State game or even Indiana game. I'd much rather have them during UMass, and that's why I say 35-3. I think it's going to be a workout game where we're going to try and field new ideas and figure out how to solve problems.
And we go on now. We then play Northwestern, and this is a team that has really struggled. That I do have a lot of respect for. Head coach Pat Fitzgerald. Northwestern is one of those teams that they come out strong in the first half and against anybody.
Oh yes.
But they've never been able to really finish a game. I think that I really do pity them because every time I watch them on TV, if they're at a home game, there's more away fans in the stadium than home fans. So I mean, I do pity Northwestern a little bit. I do think that they have a lot of heart. I mean, their players. I mean, they want to be there. They love the school. Right outside Chicago. They can get some good recruits in there. Pat Fitzgerald's a good coach. Every time we play Northwestern, we're getting stomped in the first half.
Oh, yes.
But we come back and win. Do you think it's going to be like that this year?
I don't. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think now that Penn State, like I said, it's not just this SEC mentality. I think it's just the new ways that we're training. I mean, just look at the blue and white game. We saw major differences. I think these major differences are going to shake up some of these teams. However, Northwestern, we have to remember, has experience playing teams like Vanderbilt and California and other teams. So I give them a lot of respect for that. I'm going to say that we're going to be close once again for the first half. But this time, I think Penn State is not going to be tied up with them or even behind them. I say we're going to be ahead, and we're going to be ahead for most of the game. But it's going to be one of those games in the paper where it says pesky Northwestern plays Penn State to the end. I think it's going to be that way because Northwestern is. I don't think they're just going to be pesky. I think they're going to be right on our tails the whole time. Especially it's like last year and the years before with their dual quarterbacks that they played. They may not have that this year, but their receivers are well, and they still have one of those quarterbacks. I'm very, very worried about Northwestern. And if we don't have our hiccups in the UMass game, I'm worried that during homecoming we could have our hiccups during Northwestern, and you don't want to mess up with Northwestern. They started off 4-0 last season against all their non-conference opponents.
Almost beat Ohio State.
Almost defeated Ohio State. Nebraska. They put up one heck of a fight against Nebraska. Where
that was a heartbreaker.
So many Nebraska fans there over Northwestern fans at a home game. So we cannot count Northwestern out. I think they're going to be on our tails, and if we mess up in any way, we could be goners.
I look at it and I see Northwestern scoring all their points in the first half. They are not a second half team by any means. And I think Penn State is going to I think it's going to be more like the past, that we're going to struggle because Northwestern's going to come out and they're going to hit you in the mouth and be like, here, we're here to play with you. But it seems like whenever you hit them back, they can't answer. So I'm going to say Northwestern's going to actually lead Nittany Lions 17-0, but Penn State ends up winning the game 35-17.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a slog. I think but it's not just going to be a slog. It's going to be a shootout kind of slog where we're going to get up. We're going to get up maybe into the 40s, and I think we're going to get to 41-37.
Right.
I think it's going to be a shootout. That's just how I think, because Hackenberg has gotten good and Northwestern has gotten good. But at the moment I don't know if our passing defense is up to the challenge against Northwestern's wide receivers just yet. We'll have to wait and see, and for our first four games, right, whether conference or non-conference. But until then, I feel it's going to be a 37 game.
Okay, cool. And now we move on to possibly, well, in my opinion, one of the bigger games of the season at Michigan. The first night game, Big Ten night game at the Big House. Now this is a game that is starting at night. I know some games do run into night. This game is starting at night. It's going to be a very, very tough environment, always at the Big House. 110,000 fans. And they're going to want revenge. I'm going to tell you, they're not happy with the way that they came out, losing in 4 overtimes at Beaver Stadium. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. I think that Michigan, under head coach Brady Hoke, there's a lot of talent. Devin Gardner is going to be the biggest problem for Penn State. I think Michigan it's going to be a lot of back and forth, like it was last season.
I don't know. Yes, I agree. I don't know who's going to lead the first half. I don't know who's going to. I truly don't know who's going to come out in the third quarter. But to be honest with you, Coach Hoke is a very good coach. The game in 2013-14 season slipped through his fingers. Right. I mean, slipped through. They could have easily won that game with a field goal. And some of those field goals were not blocked by Penn State. Mm-hmm. So I definitely say that Michigan is going to put up one heck of a fight. Mm-hmm. I don't know who's going to win this game in the end. However, I'm going to put a projection, just seeing how Penn State has a really good recruiting class compared to Michigan's. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say a 24-17, because like you said, it's going to be back and forth. I think it is going to be back and forth. Maybe Michigan's going to lead in the first half compared to Penn State, right, like last season. But in the end, I don't think it's going to go into overtime. I think Michigan is done with overtimes, as we saw last season.
I hope Penn State is. Holy cow.
I know. I think we're done with overtimes, and I think Michigan is as well, seeing how they decided not to go to overtime with Ohio State last season. So I think Penn State, though, is going to come out on top 24-17.
Yeah, I agree with you. Penn State is going to come out on top. I'm picking it a little closer. I'm going to say 28-24. I think it's just going to be a nail biter, and I think it's going to come down to who, it's a staring contest, and who blinks first. It's going to be who makes the first mistake, and trust me, you do not want to be the team that makes the first mistake, because I think the team that makes the first mistake is going to lose the game.
I think it's that red zone efficiency.
Right.
We
100%.
And not just that, it's also going to be our special teams. We're going to have to work hard to make sure that we halt their progression when every single time they run back after a kick. We have to make sure that we punt as far as possible, and we have to make sure that we take every single chance we get to get points. Michigan is going to play for revenge, like you said. They are tired of I think, well, any team would be tired of losing against another team, but right. I think that loss against Penn State in that overtime game was a wake up call, and I think they're going to really give us a tough game.
Now we move on to Ohio State at home. The White House, we're white. We're white. Tell your friends to go, get everybody there, because last year Ohio State humiliated Penn State.
Oh, yes.
Penn State's worst performance since, the early 1900s or 18s, something like that. But I think that game was a fluke, in my opinion. I don't think there was there's no way a team should be able to beat you the way that they beat us last year.
Well, I'd make the argument that Indiana and Purdue and Penn State have seen a lot of that against Wisconsin a few years.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm saying from a Penn State standpoint.
Yeah.
There's no way any team should be able to beat Penn State like that with the recruits we have, with the support that Penn State has. And I think that Penn State's really going to be playing for revenge, kind of like Michigan would be when we play them. I'm just going to come out and say Urban Meyer, great coach. I mean, there's a lot of talent there, but we have to think about the players that left Ohio State. They lost a lot of offensive players. They lost a lot of defensive players. They lost a star linebacker. They lost secondary players. They lost some wide receivers. Last year, when you said Penn State's playing Ohio State, oh boy, we have to worry about Carlos Hyde. We have to worry about Braxton Miller. We have to worry about Posey. We have to worry about Shazier. The list goes on. Now, we're like, okay, the Buckeyes are coming to town. We have to worry about Braxton Miller. And that's it. That is it. And I think Ohio State's going to really feel the effects of having a young team this year. They're not going to go undefeated this year.
I don't think so, and I would say that I don't think any team in the Big Ten is going to go undefeated. I think there's enough talent in all these teams that everyone's going to get beat by someone. I think whether it's Indiana or Michigan State, someone's going to get beat. I think Penn State is going. I don't think I've thought this over for quite a few days and weeks, and I do agree with you now. I think Ohio State is going to have a tough time against Penn State, especially with its inexperienced team at the moment. There's plenty of experience on it, but there's a lot of inexperience as well. We'll be bringing in a lot of inexperience as well, but they're going to be talented recruits.
You have to think Kenny Guyton's gone, too, from Ohio State.
Yes.
Their star quarterback that didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but was always, a go-to guy if Braxton Miller got hurt. And they used him a lot.
Oh yes, I'm sorry to say, but the Purdue game was his major game where Purdue was leading them 20 to 13 or 20 to 12.
Purdue was looking to beat them in Columbus.
And
2 years ago.
And then Guyton, because Braxton Miller was hurt during the game, they brought in Guyton. Guyton got the touchdown and the extra point, not the extra point, the 2-point conversion, and then not only did that, they fought off Purdue during overtime. So that second conversion and the extra touchdown that came with it came seconds before the end of the game.
Right.
So I would definitely say that with Guyton gone, their second go-to guy is now gone, and all they have is Braxton Miller. And the fact that they're playing in Happy Valley.
Right.
Just like Michigan thought playing in Happy Valley, it's not that big of a deal. They paid a price, and I think Ohio State might pay a price today. Not today, but this year. So I'm going to say Penn State 30 to 20.
30 to 20. I brought you to the good side. I'm picking Penn State over Ohio State 24-17. I'm going to say it's a touchdown. It's going to be a lot of neck and neck. I'm not saying Ohio State has no talent left. I'm not saying that at all. Because Braxton Miller is still there. But he's going to have to do a lot more on his own. And that's going to be tough for him. So I think that we're going to have the edge over them. We need everybody there. So get everybody to that game if you can. Wear white. Be loud. Give them a headache.
Scream as loud as possible.
Yes, just like this kid. So now we're going to move on from Ohio State. We're going to move on to Maryland. Now, Maryland will be home, and just like Rutgers, they'll be their first year in the Big Ten. We talked about that earlier. What do you think about this game?
What do I think about this game? I welcome the Turbans to the Big Ten. I don't know if it's going to be their biggest opportunity for a win. It'll be close to them, but I think that seeing Maryland in their losses over the years and their recruits, Maryland's strong point is not football. But they can win. There are opportunities to win. For instance, if Penn State has won all these games, like I said, with the UMass game, if we're overconfident, it could cost us early. And Maryland is a team that I feel that it's going to play all out in the first two halves and get a feeling and see if they can win. If they can't win, they might settle down in the third and fourth quarters. But if they can match with Penn State the first two quarters, they will play to win. Right. And that's why Penn State, I think, in this game, in the first and second quarter, they have just got to blow past Maryland. Because if they don't, they're going to be in for a slug of a game. Because we've been through these slugfests before with the teams that we are normally supposed to win against, like Ohio, and we pay dearly for them.
Right.
So it's better if we try and try and outscore Maryland early, and I think Maryland is going to try and respond. Maryland, as any team, as I've said, don't underestimate them, but I don't project them to be the highest in the Big Ten.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Maryland is going to struggle immensely this season in the Big Ten. Just be their first year. I think Rutgers is going to struggle a little bit too, but
not as much.
Not as much, but I think if Maryland has an opportunity for a big upset, it's going to be against Penn State. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I'm picking Penn State to win it. But I look at this game and I think Maryland has a lot of potential on both sides of the ball. Like you said, they're not really known for their football, but they can win. I mean, they're like Rutgers. They want to make an impression on the Big Ten and say, hey, we just beat Penn State at home. We can play with you. I don't think it's going to happen. I got Penn State winning this one 35-10.
I'm going to say that this game is going to be won actually the exact same score,
Yeah.
35-10, because Penn State, like I said, as long as like the mentality that I said that they punch through and get through early, and Maryland's going to try and keep up, but it's going to be an overexhausting game for them. They're going to get worn down very quickly if we play at speed and rate and with experience that a Penn State team should have. If we come out early as a team that's really like, oh, we're going to win this game and we're going to beat you, but we're not going to give 110%, Maryland will play, and they will try to upset.
So we both have Penn State at 8-0 as we go on to Indiana now. At Indiana, we have to play at Bloomington again, and I'll tell you, this is a team that I really want to beat.
I want to beat Indiana so badly. Coach Wilson, he was able to break the streak of 16-0 Penn State wins, and in the series. And now we have the chance to come back at Indiana.
Start a new one.
Let's start a new 16-0. That would be neat. Maryland's at 35-1, so
yeah.
I mean, we could start it all over 16-0. But Coach Wilson, we just cannot underestimate Indiana's NASCAR offense. I call it. It's like Penn State.
Like Penn State, it's up tempo.
But Indiana has perfected it over the years. They are so good at it. They've been over the years. It used to be Indiana only winning 1 to 2 conference games or none at all at one season, and all of a sudden they started picking up. They started defeating Illinois. They started defeating Iowa. They started defeating Purdue. And playing toe to toe with Purdue in many of their games. And then they defeated Penn State. And everyone's like, oh my gosh. Indiana is a team to be reckoned with. I mean, they
were in a game with Michigan.
Yes, they were.
One of the highest scoring Big Ten games in a long time.
And 2 years ago, they were 51-48 or 52-49 with Ohio State at home. Indiana can play, and we have to worry. This is away. It's not at home. So I caution, because Coach Wilson is out for wins as any other team, but Indiana is going to look and say Penn State is an opportunity because we got them once, we could get them again.
The people on Big Ten Network are actually saying that Penn State needs to worry about Sundfeld, Indiana's quarterback, more than any other player this season. I don't really agree with that, but I do think he's a great player. He's the guy that can make you really wish that you didn't show up, because he can hit you on the deep ball. He's got a really accurate arm. I like Indiana's chances in this game, but I think Penn State is going to prove to Indiana that last year was a fluke, because that's what I think it truly was. And Penn State's going to come out here with a hard-fought game, 35-24.
35-24. I'm thinking along the lines that since Indiana is a NASCAR offense, it's the kind that if they don't get something in the first 3 downs, it's basically over, shut down,
right.
And it's punt. I think that they're going to reach 20 points, and I think that we're going to reach 30. It's going to be another 30-20 game, I think, because Penn State in the end, I feel our experience and our just the need to win this game
right.
alone is going to, and with momentum, if like we have it 8-0, we're going to be pushing at Indiana, and I think we're going to win. Indiana, though, do not underestimate that NASCAR offense.
Right.
That is big.
And now we're moving into our 10th game of the season. It's a non-conference game against Temple. Temple.
Let's continue the World War II series winning streak.
I mean, I look at Temple, and I mean, there's talent there. But I mean, they've had some notable players. Coach Al Golden coached there for some time, who's now at Miami. They're a decent program, but I don't think they have the caliber to compete with Penn State at Beaver Stadium. It's considered a rivalry, I guess. Penn State really dominates in football, but never want to underestimate them.
2 to 3 years ago, those 2 seasons, those were the seasons that Temple had the best opportunity to defeat us. I give Temple's fans the best support possible. I've been in their section once for a Penn State game. They are always excited to play Penn State, always excited, and I give them a lot for that, because they come in and they lose almost every single game since World War II, and they still have this need. They want to win. And I say
you got to respect the team that's still trying.
You've got to, because they nearly defeated us 3 years ago. They got us almost. We managed to get a touchdown in. It was 14-10. I caution people, Temple, even though we are way up in the caliber, and this is a late season non-conference game, Temple will try and bring its A game. But we'll have to watch, because we have to watch Temple's conference season and other non-conference games and see how they play. A notable thing to look at is Temple is playing Vanderbilt earlier this season.
They?
Yes, their first game.
Interesting.
So maybe we'll see who could play Temple better when Temple's away. Will Penn State play Temple better, or will Vanderbilt play Temple better? We'll have to see.
So I am picking Penn State, of course, to win. Like I said, I'm picking Penn State 41-14.
41-14. I'm about there. I'm saying 45-17. Temple will get a couple of touchdowns and a field goal, but Penn State in the end will overrun them, I think.
And now we move on to, we're 10-0. Penn State's 10-0. We move on to our 11th game of the season at Illinois, and this should be interesting. An Illinois team that struggled last season could not get a win to save their lives. Almost pulled off a huge upset, which would have been a dagger in the heart for Penn State in overtime, but could not do it as they threw an interception in the first play of overtime, trying to go to the end zone. But they're going to look to win this year, and it's at Illinois. So what do you think about this game?
What do I think about it? I think that Illinois is still going to struggle a bit. I think that they'll be improved, as any team has, when they hit near that rock bottom area and then they start to climb. So this will be a much more difficult team. We underestimated Illinois the first time last season, and we didn't 2 years ago. And I think we need to bring that same mentality that we had 2 years ago when we had Matt McGloin and Bill O'Brien in his first season. We need to play Illinois as a respectable team, and we need to hit them like we did 35-7 that first game. So we need to play them again at Illinois. I'm not going to say try and get 35-7. I'm going to say get the mentality in there. Illinois is going to be a tougher team than it was last year. And if they can play if they can play us in overtime and force 17-17 in OT, I'm worried. So I just hope that we respect this team and just play them hard, because playing this kind of team hard will, in the end, create a good outcome for Penn State.
Yeah, I got Penn State win this game 35-24, no overtime. I think it's going to be a pretty close game, but I don't think it's going to have to go into overtime this time. I think Penn State's going to have, if they can win all the games before that, they will have the momentum on their side. And when you're playing a team that has won all their games up to then, you're a little worried about it. I mean, you don't want to show it or admit it, but you are inside a little concerned, saying this is a good team, and I think Penn State's going to be able to overpower them.
I think we'll be able to overpower them too. But Illinois, like we've seen over the years, whenever they play these kinds of teams, they still bring out the same mentality. A good example might be 2 years ago they played Wisconsin. No one thought that Illinois was going to give Wisconsin a real fight that year at home, and they did. And Illinois nearly defeated Wisconsin, but Wisconsin was able to pull out a win. I think Penn State if it's going to be 10-0 at this time, coming into Illinois, is going to face maybe the same problems, but I think we're going to win 34-24.
Yeah, now we move on to the last game of the season, and in my opinion, the hardest game of the season, Michigan State at home. Give me your thoughts on Michigan State.
Michigan State, great team. Just all around great team. Them winning the Rose Bowl was great for the Big Ten. I think in the long run, especially since now we've finally broken this Pac-12 winning streak, I'd like to call it, of the Rose Bowl, and this domination. So now we're showing that the Big Ten is back in football, and we can come and play to win. So I would be very worried, since I don't believe, as far as I remember, Michigan State hasn't lost anyone that's really vital to their program.
No, they didn't. They did not graduate a whole lot of players like Penn State didn't.
And not only with that, Michigan State has a mentality of running backs, and now they've started to improve with their offense in terms of receiving. So I would be very worried about this team. This is a high caliber team, probably going to be in the higher end of the rankings for most of the season. I don't know where their loss will be, but I don't think it's going to be from us.
No, I agree with you. I do think that you look at Michigan State, and they are just a very talented football team under head coach Mark D'Antonio, great coach. I think Michigan State will run the Big Ten table again. I think they're going to go to the Big Ten championship game and play in the Rose Bowl. Now, I'm not going to say if they're going to win the Rose Bowl because we don't know who they play right now. But I'm going to pick them going the whole way to the Rose Bowl again. Hopefully they can win. That'd be great. A lot of respect for them, but I think that they're too strong for Penn State right now. Maybe in a couple years when they're rebuilding, we could get them. Well, we probably will get them. But I think Penn State will always put up a fight on their senior day. They never give up in a game. I think Penn State loses this game with a lot of pride, having a great season, 35-28.
I think that Michigan State will get its loss. Like I said, I think every team in the Big Ten is going to get a loss. I don't think they're going to go undefeated. I don't think it's going to be from Penn State. It might be from Michigan. It might be from Ohio State. I don't think it's coming from Maryland or Rutgers, and I don't think it's coming from us. I think we're going to lose, but like you said, it's going to be senior day. Whether it's basketball, football, or any other sport, seniors will play till the end.
And we will have a lot of them too.
Oh yes, and I think we're going to give Michigan State a very warm welcome and give them I think we're going to give them a 30-24 loss on our end.
Yeah. I think we're both picking Penn State, I guess, at 11-1, and people might be sitting there thinking these guys are crazy. Well, if you look at the stats and the players that these teams have, we actually have one of the easier schedules. I'm not going to say easy, but easier schedules in the Big Ten. We have a pretty easy non-conference schedule. We have a non-conference team in the middle of our conference season, well, towards the end of our conference season in Temple. We have Illinois, Indiana. These are teams that we can beat. Yeah, it's going to be hard to beat Michigan at home. It's going to be away, excuse me. We have Ohio State at home. That's going to be tough, but hey, it's at home. It's much better than playing them at Columbus.
Oh, yes.
And Michigan State is, in my opinion, the toughest game. We can't play for a bowl. But I seriously think if Penn State can really minimize the mistakes this season and play to their full potential, because this is a team that is true talent. I think if the talent can come out, Penn State can go 11-1 this season and really shock a lot of people.
Oh yes, we're going to shock a lot of people. I think. I also think that we're not just going to play spoiler, but we're also going to we're just going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Big Ten again, like we were for many seasons. But I think we're going to be much more of a force this year. I also think that this is the year that we might finally break the glass ceiling on the rankings. Ohio State was in the rankings when they were at a bowl ban, and I think we're going to finally break the glass ceiling.
If they let us, I'm not sure if they'll let us or not.
I think they will. We'll
see.
It just shows. Because it just has to depend because we earned votes beforehand, and we made some mistakes. I don't. If we didn't make mistakes against UCF last year, maybe we may have been in the rankings, maybe 24-25 for a week or two. I think if we play this out, I mean, getting to Michigan State and being 11-0, undoubtedly we will be in the rankings. But it depends on where we go. If we defeat UCF and then we defeat Akron and then we keep going by Northwestern, I think we will be in the rankings if we are at 5-0.
That is if they let us.
I think they will.
I hope so.
They've let us get votes. I think they will. It just depends because coaches, like in the coaches poll, coaches in the end they know a good team when they see one.
Right.
If we're playing at a high caliber and not just getting the wins but seeing how we're winning, and we're not making mistakes, it's not a question of having to put us in the rankings, but they just know that we belong there.
Yeah. Well, I think, and another thing, we're playing for something. People might not say, why are they even trying? They can't go to a bowl game. Well, possibly next year we could.
Oh, yes.
And the years after that we will be able to. And we're playing right now to get ourselves in a position where we can be successful in the future, and that's huge. And the fans out there, the team needs our support. So be sure to get up to the game. Jim Franklin wants 107,000 every game, and I think that's doable. I mean, that's Nebraska does it. I mean, Michigan has done it for non-conference games. We can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
We need to really come back as a family again, and we can really run the table. I think
yes.
This could be a huge season for us. I want to thank Michael for coming along.
Thank you, Adam.
We'll hopefully have you back soon. If you guys have any questions or any comments you'd like to make, we'd love to answer them. Just put them in the comments section below. Give it a thumbs up. Share it if you would like. It really helps us out. You can subscribe because I do a lot of Penn State videos. I have 165 of the best subscribers on YouTube that have been very loyal. He has a YouTube video channel. What's your YouTube channel?
My YouTube channel is Penn Michael. I usually focus on basketball games. I'm a big football fan, but you'd be surprised. There are some of us that are crazy about Penn State basketball.
Yeah, I like Penn State basketball. I like anything Penn State. But this is where we're gonna leave you guys today. I hope you guys have a great 4th of July. I'm probably not gonna make a video before then. So enjoy the 4th of July. Be safe. Have a great time. And as always, we are Penn State.